right, let's talk about something that sounds, well, completely backwards. On one hand, you've got airplanes flying across the sky with literally nobody on them. And on the other, you have thousands of planes just sitting in the desert, parked for who knows how long. Today, we're going to dig into these two bizarre extremes in the world of aviation and find the hidden logic that actually connects them. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Why on earth would any airline burn thousands of gallons of jet fuel just to fly an empty tube through the sky? This is the central mystery of what the aviation world calls ghost flights. So let's be clear, a ghost flight isn't some spooky, supernatural thing. Nope, it's a cold, hard business decision. It's a commercial flight that's either totally empty or pretty close to it, and it's flown for one very specific reason: to hang on to a super valuable landing slot at a busy airport. And this, right here, is where things get really controversial. As this member of the European Parliament points out, aviation is already a huge source of pollution. So you can imagine the idea of flying empty planes around just doesn't sit right with, trying to save the planet. And the scale of this problem, it's absolutely staggering. Get this. A Greenpeace analysis estimated that during just one winter season, right in the middle of the pandemic, there were something like 100,000 of these ghost flights in Europe alone. Just think about that number. That is a whole lot of pointless journeys. And here's what that actually means for the environment. We're not just talking about wasted money on fuel. The environmental cost is massive. It's basically the same as adding 1.4 million extra cars to our roads for an entire year. So you have to be asking, why? Why would airlines do this? Well, it all boils down to one incredibly powerful piece of regulation. It's called the use it or lose it rule. Okay, so this is the absolute heart of the matter. These things called airport slots, which are basically just specific permissions to take off or land at a certain time, they are incredibly valuable assets. And to keep those slots for next year, airlines typically have to use them at least 80% of the time. If they don't hit that number, poof, they lose them. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you have a permanently reserved table at the most popular, exclusive restaurant in your city. If you don't show up for your reservation most of the time, guess what? The restaurant is going to give that prime spot to someone else forever. For an airline, losing a slot at a major hub is a catastrophic blow to their business. And if you want to see just how locked up these things are, take a look at this chart for London Heathrow. See those huge purple bars? Those are all the slots that are handed out based on so-called historic rights. There is almost zero room for anybody new to get in. The system is totally gridlocked. In fact, we're talking over 99.5% of the slots at Heathrow are allocated this way. So here's the bottom line. If an airline owns one of these slots, they will do almost anything to keep it. And yeah, that even includes flying an empty plane. Okay, so while some planes are flying for absolutely no reason, thousands of others are sitting perfectly still, completely on purpose. Let's pivot from these flying ghosts to the sleeping giants of the boneyard. This place is the 309th AMARG, but pretty much everyone calls it the Boneyard. It's out at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, and it is the total opposite of a pointless flight. This is a place of deliberate, calculated, strategic stillness. This facility is just immense. It's the biggest of its kind anywhere in the world, with nearly 4,000 government aircraft just parked out there. And the Arizona desert, it's the perfect spot. The dry climate stops rust in its tracks. In fact, this place is so valuable, it basically acts as a massive spare parts store, pumping about $500 million worth of parts back into the system every single year. And these planes are not just dumped here to rot. Oh no, it is a very careful, meticulous process. They get washed down, their fuel systems are filled with a special protective oil, and then the whole aircraft gets sealed in this white vinyl coating that basically acts like a giant sunscreen, protecting it from the harsh desert elements. What's really fascinating is that there's a specific game plan for every single plane. Some are in what's called Type 1000 storage, which means they're kept ready to be called back into service. Others are there just to be stripped for spare parts. And some are even kept in flying hold, where their engines are started up regularly, just in case they're needed at a moment's notice. So how on earth do these sleeping giants in the desert connect back to our flying ghosts? Well, it all comes down to one thing: preserving options for the future. And sometimes that means turning a graveyard into a front line. You've got to hear this incredible story about Tinian Airfield. Back in 1945, this was the busiest airfield on the entire planet. It's famous for launching the missions against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but after the war, it was totally abandoned, completely swallowed by jungle. But fast forward to today, and the US Air Force is literally carving it back out of the wilderness, bringing it back to life.
Now, this is all part of a very modern military strategy. The idea is, instead of relying on a few giant super bases, you create a flexible network of smaller airfields. A base that was left for dead for 75 years is now a key strategic asset all over again, simply because its potential was preserved.
And this is where it all comes together. A ghost flight, as wasteful as it seems, is about preserving a valuable commercial asset. That flight slot, a foothold in the market. A boneyard preserves a valuable strategic asset, a plane, or even an entire base. See? They're two sides of the same coin. An action that looks pointless on the surface is actually all about holding on to a critical option for the future. So, at the end of the day, both the flying ghost and the sleeping giant force us to ask the exact same question. When we see a plane that seems to be doing nothing useful, is it really just waste? Or is it something else entirely? Is it patiently waiting for its moment?